forgot we had to open the intro. Hello, my name is Ryan Mossor. That is one of my best friends, David Kahoun, and this is the Commissioner's Couch Fantasy Football Podcast. Welcome back, everybody. It's Wednesday night. This was supposed to be last week's episode, but unfortunately, I was sick and lost my voice for like 5 days. Had to cancel a bunch of shows last week, so sorry about that. But we are still recording this show because obviously it brings value to everyone. We have a lot of viewers, and we just want to continue that. So we are gonna, continue another night with a seat on the commissioner's couch and another chance for us to keep pushing deeper into one of the most intriguing, wide receiver classes in recent memory. Tonight we are rolling into episode 18 overall, David, which is crazy. Week 5 of season 2 already. Week 5. Man. Wow.
How does that make you feel? Because now that we're like in it, I feel like we're slowly getting better at this and slowly feeling more comfortable with it. So how does it make you feel?
I've noticed a few things I need to work on, saying or and stuff like that. Just filler words. I'm trying to slow down a little bit, but it's part of the it's part of the process. So bear with me. I did notice last episode I did say a ton, so I apologize for that, and I'm gonna be more aware of it. But nonetheless,
that's okay. We'll understand.
Right. Nonetheless, we will continue to bring you awesome content. So we didn't want to just because I was sick, we didn't want to hinder our product at all. So we're going to come back with the same energy, the same detail, the same commitment to real evaluation that's carried us through this entire draft cycle. If you've been with us the last 2 weeks, you already know how layered this receiver group is. David, is crazy. We've gone through 12 names so far. A lot of completely different skill sets, different developmental arcs, different ways to win in NFL offense. And the crazy part is we're still nowhere near the bottom of the barrel. This class just keeps giving, and it's a lot of fun to see. Every time that you think we've got a handle on tiers, another cluster of guys shows up with traits that force you to rethink the board. That's what makes this this week, I think, so important, truly. Yeah. Tonight isn't just about headliners or household names. Tonight is about like the players that live in the middle of the stretch of the rankings. Guys who don't always dominate the conversation, but absolutely some of these guys deserve to. Yeah. These are receivers who end up becoming the glue pieces, the matchup answers, the role-specific weapons that offense lean on when games tighten up. They're not always flashy, but a lot of these guys are smart, they're skilled, and they bring traits that are translate to the NFL. And as always, we're evaluating them through the same system we've used all years, the same trait-based rubric, the same process, the same standards. No shortcuts. I can't talk today. Getting back into the swing of things being off a week, apparently. There's no box score scouting, no chase hype. Just real tape, real context, and because of that, we'll have real projection for these players. Tonight we're adding 6 more names to the board, Dave. 6 receivers with completely different paths to the league. Do you want to introduce the guys real quick?
Yeah, sure. So the 6 receivers, I really like these guys. They are very good diamonds in the rough type of players. And could be very good diamond in the rough late draft steals for your fantasy leagues. Mm-hmm. So the first one is Malachi Fields. Second one is Jeremy Bernard. Third one is Antonio Williams. Fourth one is Deion Burks. Fifth one is Brennan Thompson. And the last one is Bryce Lance.
Nice. Yeah. By the end of this episode, we'll have covered a total of 18 receivers, which is crazy. We've already gone through the quarterback position, and now we're about fully through the receiver position. We'll start on running backs live tomorrow. This is obviously pre-recorded, so you'll probably see this within today or tomorrow, guys.
Hopefully,
nonetheless, you're getting 2 episodes this week. The last 6 receivers, and then our top 6 running backs. The picture of this class will be clearer than ever, and I'm really excited. So let's settle in. Let's grab a drink. Get comfortable on the commissioner's couch because episode 18, David, is officially underway, and it's time to talk wide receivers yet again.
There we go. And by the way, if you are not following us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, really wherever you get your podcasts, go ahead and give us a follow, give us a download. Follow us on Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok. We're trying to be everywhere that you are. And so
we are everywhere you are. So
it's a good place to be. So, And before we jump into things, we do have a couple of ad reads for you. So the first one, the Inside Edge Network is brought to you by Alley Rose Fragrances. Our network sponsor for the Inside the Edge network is Alley Rose Fragrances. Discover Alley Rose's collection of handcrafted candles and body mists made with clean, minimal ingredients. Every product is thoughtfully created with small batches, free from harmful toxins, or for mindful, everyday indulgence.
Yep.
Head over to AlleyRoseFragrances.com right now to order and use a special promo code InsideEdge20 to receive a special discount today.
Click that banner.
Oh, the banner. That's right. Where did it go?
David's got a new banner. Sorry.
No, you're good.
We're learning.
That one.
Boom,
AlleyRoseFragrances.com and use the Inside Edge code EDGE20.
There you go. Also, we are brought to you by Mossor Moments Photography. They are a husband and wife wedding photography team based in Cleveland who specialize in providing the best wedding photos in Northeast Ohio. Check out their website at MossorMomentsPhotography.com. That's MOSSOR momentsphotography.com.
It's a great website. I love it.
They're the best guy. Man.
They really are. I mean, all right.
Objectively.
So let's just catch up everybody with where we're at in this whole process.
Let's just talk for a minute. Huh? How you doing? I haven't talked to you all week.
I had a long week at work, but I'm okay. Yeah. How are you?
I'm doing good. I finally got the e-bike out and took the boys on like a 15-mile bike ride today. They had a blanket. They were cozy in the back of snacks. Took them to a playground, played for like an hour and a half, and then rode on home. It was fun, man. It was a good time.
Nice. Yeah, it's finally starting to somewhat feel like spring. I feel like this is a false spring, but we'll see how long it lasts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a mushroom hunter, so spring is my time, and I'm counting down the days, baby. I'm so excited. Can't wait for these morels to come out. So,
I'm so jealous. I want to try one.
Dude, you got to come out with me this year. Come out with me this year.
Okay.
I have a honey hole. I can't tell you where it is. I'll have to blindfold you, but
that's fine. I'll go.
All right. All right. Go ahead. You're talking about the pre-draft series.
Yeah. So we're in the pre-draft process right now. So we're just kind of going through all of these positions that will be helpful for fantasy football. So quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends. And today we're finishing up the wide receiver class. So we are on our third episode of wide receivers, which will be our last group of wide receivers. And then tomorrow we're going to jump into running backs. And so this is going to be a really good episode to kind of dig in, find some good diamonds in the roughs, as I said, find some good value in drafts, and even maybe the waiver wire where you can just watch somebody as the season starts and see how they progress as the season rolls along. So you can pick them up for free in your fantasy leagues and really get a good quality player.
Right.
So yeah, this is a great time to pay attention and jump in. If you've missed some of our previous episodes where we talked about quarterbacks and other wide receivers, and you want to hear like who our top guys are, go ahead back 2 episodes. We talk about those wide receivers.
Go check them out. Seriously.
They're really,
a lot
really
of info out there.
So, yeah. But yeah, that's what we're doing. And we are ready for player number 1. If you're ready.
Well, I just wanted to talk about something as we shift into the third week of receiver evaluations. Like I said, this is really where the board takes shape. Like David said, the first 2 waves gave us the headliners and, the clean projection. Those guys, you really jump off the board with traits, every time you turn on the tape. But every draft cycle reached a point where the conversation stops being about obvious names and starts being about the players who make you slow down, rewind, and really study what they bring to an NFL offense. And that's exactly where we are tonight. I'm really excited. You can drop number 1. Yeah, I'm really excited about this. Love these guys.
It's going to be good. All right, let's jump in to number 1.
Number 1.
Number 1, Malachi Fields. All right, so Mossor, tell me a little bit of the background of this player, Malachi Fields. Where is he from? What did his college career look like? What's his height and weight?
Sure.
What is it?
Yeah. Malachi Fields, wide receiver out of Notre Dame. He is my wide receiver 11. If you've been following around on my big board, do you have him ranked, David?
Yes, I do. I have him ranked number 10. So right next to where you're at.
Nice. Yeah. He's 6'3", 218. Ran a 4.6 140, 36-inch vert. His broad jump is 10 feet 4 inches. He's one of those guys whose path tells you a lot about the player he became. He started at Virginia, flashed early, and then made the jump to Notre Dame. And, that move really showcased his maturity, I thought. He walked into a demanding program for sure. I think he earned trust quickly and, carved out a role that helped him a lot because of how physical and reliable he was. He was he just meshed really well with that offense. Statistically, I think he was steady every year. 2021, 11 catches, 172 yards at Virginia. Same with 5 catches, 58 yards in 2022. 2023, 58 catches, 811 yards and 5 touchdowns. 2024, 55 catches, 808 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then 2025, 36 catches, 630 yards and 5 touchdowns. Across his career, he never dipped below 14 yards per catch in any full season, which I think is really good. That tells you exactly, what kind of receiver he is. He's a vertical, boundary-based target who consistently, creates chunk plays. And the thing that stands out is how he grew. Early on, he was more of a raw athlete with size, I think. But by the time he left Notre Dame, he was a polished, physical receiver who understood leverage, timing, and how to, frame. Use his frame to dictate the rep, I would say. His development curve is exactly what you want to see from a guy who projects, to the boundary in the NFL. So,
yeah. So you talked about this a little bit, but like the mold that he fits in, you said he's a big boundary, vertical threat type of a player. How does that fit into a certain type of mold for like fantasy football?
Well, yeah. So he's not a classic power wideout. He's not a jitterbug. He's not a finesse separator. He's a force-driven X who wins with strength, balance, and body positioning. So that's going to be, that's going to transition well in the red zone for sure. With that, he's great with body positioning. He high points the ball, 6'3". He's got a big body and he's physical. He's got great hands. Everything he does is built on, controlling the rep. He leans into corners. He absorbs contact without losing his line. And he's at his best on slants, digs, comebacks, and shoulder throws. So he has the chance or the opportunity to get, multiple, a lot of receptions. Think Odell. He's a little bigger than Odell, but just guys who are, that true X, but also are great on slants and still a little shifty. So
yeah, kind of like AJ Brown-ish.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So what is one of their like biggest challenges that you can see them facing as they transition into the NFL? You're muted, by the way.
Sorry. Yeah, I would say he's not necessarily a burner. I mean the 4.61 matches the tape. He's not going to run away from NFL corners. And he's not incredibly twitchy. He's not sudden, I would say. His separation comes from more technique and strength and not quickness. So he is going to be an outside receiver. So there could be limitations there, but he's got a lot of strengths, man. He's physical. He's got ball skills. He's got great body control, fantastic leverage manipulation. So, NFL corners are strong. I think the stronger, bigger corners who are faster and more disciplined, I think he's going to have to win with more precision, especially against press. The physical advantages he had in college won't be as dramatic on Sundays, I would say. So,
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I definitely agree that he fits that category of like an X typical wide receiver. It seemed like this last year, Notre Dame specifically, they didn't really utilize him very well. I don't know if you saw that as well, but do you want to speak to that at all? Like how was he utilized at Notre Dame?
I mean, they had Jaden Grayhouse. They were trying to figure things out. I
kind of felt like he was an old veteran on a very young team that was kind of resetting. Yeah. And so it seemed very much like, hey, we have this really talented piece, but we don't just know how to use him just yet. And so I think it kind of hurt his draft stock going into the draft cycle this year a little bit.
Yeah, I'm looking at his NFL traits. I could care less about or even, necessarily 100% the production, which was relatively decent. Like I said, over 14 yards per carry or per reception and 5 touchdowns the last 3 years. So,
yeah. All right. Well, give me your last summary for Malachi Fields. Why does this matter for fantasy football?
He projects as a physical, boundary-oriented receiver who can contribute early, I think. Obviously it just depends on where he gets drafted, but I think he can be a chain-moving X in the NFL. His combination of size, balance, competitive toughness. It makes him a natural fit for timing-based systems, red zone concepts, offenses that rely on receivers who can, win through contact. I think he should thrive in a reliable perimeter target who handles tough catches and brings a physical identity to the passing game as he continues, obviously, to refine his pacing and expand his vertical route inventory. I think Malachi Fields has the potential to grow into a dependable starter for sure, a player who tilts coverage, wins with high leverage moments, and becomes a trusted option for his quarterback. So obviously, we're not right there to see where he gets drafted, but I really love the trades that translate to the NFL for Malachi Fields. So.
Yeah, I agree. He's got that big playability, that big body, big catch radius, could be a really good best friend for a quarterback. So the player comp that I have for him, I don't know if you're going to like this or not, but I'm very curious to see your reaction, is actually T. Higgins.
Oh my! I'm an idiot.
That'll be fun to clean up. So T. Higgins, somebody else who's 6'4", got a big catch radius. I feel like the Bengals have somehow managed to mold him into somebody that's a little bit more versatile than just an X wide receiver. But I think Malachi Fields coming into the NFL is going to be very prototypical of an X wide receiver. Big catch radius, as I said, very physical, good in the traffic areas to catch the ball. And so I think there's a lot to like between or to compare Malachi Fields to T. Higgins. And I think that he will be a good red zone target for a lot of quarterbacks if he lands in the right spot. And so let me see if you can guess my landing spot that I have for him.
Where do I the Chargers?
Ooh, I like that one, but no, that is not what I picked. I picked the Miami Dolphins, actually. Don't you dare do another spit take.
Wow, he'd be the wide receiver 1 there. That's crazy.
He literally would be, right? And so that's why
obviously after Jalen Waddle got traded. So
Yep, yeah. And so Jalen Waddle's gone. He was sent out. They literally have nobody to throw the ball to. So
Malik Washington.
Okay, they have Malik Washington. That's Devin Achane. That's it.
Yeah,
And so you have Malik Willis that came in and they signed this offseason, and then they traded away their wide receiver 1. They've got to do something there. And so I think you look at the Dolphins, they have a couple of first-round picks. They've got some good second-round picks. I think somebody like a Malachi Fields could be in play there as they get some other positions earlier in the draft, and they could get Malachi Fields here in the second round. And so I like the value that they would have to get him. And he could be an instant impact player for them right away. And so I think it would be helpful for him in his development right away and be perfectly ideal for him for fantasy football relevancy too. Because Malik Willis will definitely love having somebody like Malachi Fields to throw to.
Yeah, he needs anybody right now.
He needs anybody.
Maybe a ball boy. Like
hey, Moss, maybe you could go sign up to play for the Dolphins.
Yeah. If I was 4 inches taller and 10 years younger.
All right. Well, let's jump on. Player number 2.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Number 2, Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver, Alabama. You want to talk about it for a second?
Yeah. What do you have him ranked at?
Oh, I have him ranked. You ready?
Yeah.
Wide receiver 34.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, what?
Okay. So I have to admit, I'm also lower on him, but I did not put him that low. I have him at wide receiver 13. So
I just exited my notes. What am I doing?
Well, let's get those back up.
What am I doing? Hold on one second.
You're good.
There they are. Okay. Yes, Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver out of Alabama, 6 foot exactly, 193 pounds, 4.48 40, 6.713 cone drill.
All right, so he played at Alabama last year. Give us a little bit of his college career. Did he start in Alabama? Did he transfer into it? What did it look like?
Yeah, his story is one of steady growth and
Adaptability.
If I could talk, jeez. He started at Michigan State, flashed early again. One of these guys that flashed early, and then made the jump to Alabama from the Big Ten, which is a massive leap. Not just out of the Big Ten, but out of Michigan State for sure. In competition and I think in expectation as well. And instead of getting lost in the shuffle, I think it elevated his game. His production tells a story of a player who I think kept adding layers. 2022 at Michigan State, 7 catches, 128 yards, and 2 touchdowns. 2023, 34 catches, 419 yards, 2 touchdowns. Then at Alabama, 50 catches, 794 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then this last year, 64 catches, 862 yards, and 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's good, consistent growth. Yeah.
Yeah, and he wasn't just a receiver. He also added over 180 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns across his career. So, that versatility is a part of what makes him, valuable or made him valuable at Alabama and possibly in the NFL as well. I think what stands out is how he evolved. I think early on, he was more of one of those gadget players, maybe a gadget plus player at most. By the end, he was a polished, reliable hybrid receiver who, understood spacing, timing, and how to manipulate leverage. His developmental curve is exactly what you want to see from a guy who I think can have a multi-role in the NFL offense.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I love seeing how like those players are now starting to have that consistent, steady growth throughout their whole college career. It's not so much like, oh, hey, they just flashed in their pan like this past year and just really lit it up. No, there's been like that consistent growth and development that whole time. So if you had to put him into some sort of mold or give him some sort of description to describe the way that he plays, how would you do that?
I think he's a rhythm-oriented mover. He's not a bruiser by any. He's not a pure speed merchant. He's a guy who wins with pacing, with balance, and with feel. He fits the modern Z slot hybrid role where you can move him around, give him emotion. Let him work off of leverage. He's smooth. He's controlled. I think he's incredibly consistent as well. He's the type of receiver who always seems to be exactly where the quarterback expects him to be.
Yeah, I like that. Almost like a jack of all trades type of a player. Yeah.
Maybe not. I'm not saying he's Deebo Samuel, but a Deebo Samuel type player. So.
Yeah. Can fit into that
gadget.
mold. Yeah. I like that. All right. So you mentioned all of his strengths. What are some areas in which he could grow in as he transitions into the NFL?
Yeah. I think he's, heavily dependent on, timing and structure. If he lands on offense that doesn't value rhythm or spacing, he could get minimized quickly. I think his limitations are actually what separate him from the top tiers. I don't think he's a dynamic athlete. He's efficient, but not electric. He's not a physical present. Bigger corners can disrupt him if they get hands on early. He's not a vertical dominator. He's more of a chain mover than a fluid, a field tilter. I don't know. I can go into why I have him lower than consensus, but it's quite a bit. So, I mean, like I said, timing traits, his projection is narrower than others in his range. I think his physical profile limits certain parts of his route tree. I think other players in his tier have more dynamic upside. And I think he has a smaller margin for error as well. So,
I think that's fair assessment and definitely I think accurate as well. So when it comes to fantasy football, you mentioned how he needs to have that rhythm type of a offense to kind of be in the right spot at the right time. How does that project into fantasy football relevancy in year one for him?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the definition of a role-driven fantasy asset. He's not going to be the splash pick, but he's the type of player who becomes relevant because he earns trust over time. For fantasy, I think he's a PPR death piece early. His matchup base flex in the right scheme, maybe long-term wide receiver 3, maybe wide receiver 4 type with a stable floor. I don't think he's going to be a league winner, but he's the kind of guy who sticks on rosters because he's reliable, he's consistent, he doesn't disappear when the offense needs him. So
yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. All right, so any other summary notes you want to give about Jeremy Bernard before I go into the player comp that I have for him?
No, he projects as a smooth timing-based receiver. I think he can contribute early if he's in the right system as a movement Z or slot option in the NFL. But like I said, it's going to be pretty much contingent on where he's drafted. So, and where, what that wide receiver room looks like. So.
No, yeah, I agree. Which I think is why you'll like where I picked for his ideal fit. But we'll get to that in a minute. So the player comp that I have for him, hold on, I have to sneeze. Got the mute in there just in time. Over there. Thank you. So the player comp that I have for Jeremy Bernard is actually Parker Washington from the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Interesting.
Yeah, talked about a player who really did well in that motion-based offense, rhythm, creating that easy separation based off of that motion. I think Parker Washington was a clear example of how that can be utilized really well in the NFL. Player who was really not thought of strongly going into last season, but somebody who kind of became a reliable piece for not Travis Etienne, that's the running back, Trevor. Wow. Trevor Lawrence, and was really good for that offense as they moved along throughout the season. They were trying to figure out their wide receiver game that whole season because BTJ was really an unknown question mark and it was not himself. And Parker Washington stepped up and became a reliable piece for that offense. And so you look at like that rhythm base that you talked about. I think an offense that would really, really fit Jeremy Bernard very well would be an offense where there's availability at the wide receiver position where he can get some opportunity to play, but also utilizes that rhythm-based offense very, very much to a T, and the quarterback relies on it time and time again, and that would be the New England Patriots. You've looked at last year with Drake May and Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, I feel like, is very, very reliable when it comes to being in the right place at the right time, at least on the field. And so I think if you have somebody like a Jeremy Bernard who maybe still needs a little bit of time to develop, but can get a lot of reps in right away, and kind of hit the ground, having that freedom to play and learn as he goes, I think he can really develop into a reliable piece for that offense and for Drake May as he continues to develop as well.
Yeah, he would. Be thrown into a question mark of offensive, I guess question marks at receiver for the Patriots in general. Obviously, they just signed Romeo Doubs to that deal to be their wide receiver one. Stephon Diggs is out, and then it's Kyle Williams, Mac Hollins. I just heard a big drop upstairs. Hopefully, my wife is okay. We'll find out. Nonetheless, it's wide open for wide receiver two. Mac Hollins, Pop Williams or Douglas. Pop Williams.
Pop Douglas. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a good fit. And I think that fantasy relevancy could be a really good opportunity for him to kind of hit the ground running and become like a Parker Washington type of a waiver wire favorite as the season rolls along. All right. Well, before we jump into our next two, we do have a ad to play for you all. The Inside Edge Network, first of all, has just been growing crazily. And so we've gotten a lot of sponsors and ads. And so we've got a few more to go through. And here is our first one. Yeah. Hey, everyone. This is David from the Commissioner's Couch podcast. Fantasy football fans, you've found the #1 destination for all the officially licensed football gear you will need this NFL season. The NFL shop from Fanatics.com features sportswear and accessories from brands like Nike and New Era, as well as NFL coolers, so you can head to the tailgate repping your team. If you're looking to add to your collection of tailgate gear, you need to check out our grilling items and coolers. With official player jerseys, polos, and hats, we've got enough gear to keep you repping your favorite NFL team throughout the whole season. Go to Fanatics.com by using the QR code on the screen right now to celebrate your fantasy football teams. Again, that's Fanatics.com, or use the QR code on the screen to buy all the gear you need to rep your team. Good luck. All right, there it is. Somehow, some way, I'm wearing the same shirt. Lucked out. But yeah, if you are interested in purchasing anything from Fanatics, we do have our QR code right above me, actually. So go ahead and scan that at any time, and be sure to use the promo code. Actually, there is no promo code. It's just use that QR code. So scan the QR code and purchase anything you want today. All right. Are we ready for
receiver? Let's do it.
Player number 3.
Number 3.
Number 3. Antonio Williams. All right, Moss. I have him as my number 12 wide receiver. Where is he at on your big board?
He's my number 20.
20? Okay, not awful.
No.
That's not. I feel like that's not a huge discrepancy between us because 12 and 20.
No. It's the tiers after, like I said, the top tiers, the top 3 guys. Malachi. Malachi Fields. Oh my gosh, it's early. It's not really. I don't have excuses. I don't know what's going on.
It's one.
Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, and Jordan Tyson. Those are top 3. Then after that, it's tiered off. And there's not a huge difference between some of these tiers here. So yeah, 12, 20. It's not a huge drop there. So
All right. Well, give us a little bit of a glimpse on who Antonio Williams is. I know last year he ended his college career at Clemson, but what was it like before that, and how was his development and growth journey?
Yeah, 5'11" and a half. Got to get that half in there. They swear. 187. He ran a 4.4 140, a little speedier than the other two guys. A 1.55 split, 39.5-inch vert, and 10'4" broad jump at the combine. Antonio Williams is one of those receivers who walked into college, already looking like he belonged, I think. Clemson doesn't hand out early snaps unless they're polished. And, he proved right away that he was ahead of the curve. His year-by-year projection, paints a really clear picture of who he became. His freshman year, 56 catches, 604 yards, and 4 touchdowns. 2023, he was injured. That impacted the season. Only 21 catches, 208 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Then he bounced back in 2024, 75 catches, 904 yards, and 11 touchdowns. And then last year he had 55 catches, 604 yards, and 4 touchdowns in a very crowded receiver room. I think he also added value on the ground, over 180 rushes and multiple, on the ground scores across his career. I think what stands out is how he responded after that dip in 2023. Obviously, he came back in 2024 after that injury season 2023, and he turned into Clemson's most reliable separator. A guy who could win from the slot, from reduce splits, and even outside when they needed him to. His background in basketball and track shows up in his footwork and acceleration, and understanding of spacing is as good as anyone in this class, I think. So
no, yeah, I agree. His ability to know where to sit down on a route and wait in that cushion zone is actually really, really impressive.
Yeah, it's
not many wide receivers that are coming out this year I feel like are as good as he is. All right, so you mentioned that he's a reliable piece, but he was kind of caught up in a very crowded room at Clemson. So how would it look like when you talk about his archetype or the certain mold that he fits in? We may not have seen it all at Clemson, but how would you describe what that looks like?
Yeah, I think he's a precision-based slot Z hybrid receiver. He's definitely not a bully. He's not fast. He is fast, but he's not like one of those incredible burners. I think he's more of a technician. Everything he does is he's built on pacing and balance. He can, manipulate levers well. I think, he's a guy who wins with clean footwork, route discipline, spatial awareness, controlled acceleration. He's the receiver who makes the quarterback look right. He's always where he's supposed to be. He rarely wastes movements. And he's the definition of a rhythm friendly target. So
yeah. No, yeah, I like that. I like the way that you characterize that. He's the one that makes the quarterback look good.
Yeah,
he's a reliable piece. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I described him as a gritty yard getter as well. Somebody who's not afraid to get his nose a little bit dirty to go pick up an extra few yards. But when you talk about transitioning into the NFL, that part of his game may not be there because it's just so much more physical and faster. So what could be some of the other challenges that he might face as he transitions into the NFL?
Well, I think he does. He's got elite pacing. I mean, I think he understands how to vary, speed better than most receivers in this class. When he decides to, turn down the engine, he can stop almost on a dime. His short area quickness, his transitions are very crisp. He rarely drifts out of breaks, and he's got, great ball security as well, soft hands. I think the limitations are, for me, what keep him in the wide receiver 20 range are he's not a vertical dominator, at least what I saw on tape. He was fast in the combine, but he can win deep, but he's not a field tilter, I would say. Yeah. He's not built for heavy traffic outside. Bigger corners are going to compress him, especially when they get their hands on him early in the rep. He's definitely not a contested catch specialist. He wins with timing, definitely not power. I think his biggest challenge going into the NFL is going to be handling those physical corners who want to disrupt his rhythm. His game is built on timing. So a defense, if they throw off his timing, he's going to have to counter with even more precision, and that might be harder to do stepping up a level going into the NFL. So.
Gotcha. So are you worried about him, I guess, creating that separation and release off the line of scrimmage if he gets jammed?
I don't think he's a wide receiver 1. So I mean, I don't necessarily, and I don't think he's gonna get the top corner. He might get a nickel. He might get a linebacker sometimes. So he might be able to beat those guys because he is shifty, like I said.
Yeah.
So I think he's just gonna be one of those guys who's gonna take small chunk plays. 5-yard hitches, sit in windows, try to get first downs. Just looking to be a chain mover more than anything else. But those guys can be reliable in the NFL for sure. So
yeah. All right. So how do you think he projects in the fantasy football his first year in the league?
I think he's a high floor fantasy profile. He's not the guy who's going to give you 1,500 yards for sure, but he's the guy who can give you steady production for years, I think. I think he is a PPR asset, just like I said, he can't find those windows. I think he could be a reliable wide receiver 3, maybe a wide receiver 2 on some weeks, depending on usage. He's a landing spot sensitive player again, but in the right system, I think he is a target magnet. It just depends on where he lands. I think he's the type of player who brings a quarterback's go-to option on third down. He's maybe in the red zone as well. And in the quick game, I think that can translate to fantasy points. Maybe not the explosive kind, the giant plays you want, but the dependable kind. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that dependability is what's going to be his calling card when he gets into the NFL, and what's going to be what a quarterback loves most about him. When it comes to player comps, I was kind of struggling to find one for him, in all honesty. I think there's a lot of players that kind of fit into his mold of just hard-nosed kind of football at wide receiver and dependability. But I picked somebody who's kind of recent, so that way people have somebody to kind of compare him to. And that would be Jaden Reed, somebody who was thought of very highly a couple years ago in the draft. Kind of had some good moments in the NFL so far, but been dealing with injuries. But somebody who I think also exemplifies that, hey, I can find the soft spot in this zone and sit down and be reliable for you. And then I can make some plays with my feet afterwards. And I may not be the most fastest guy or the twitchiest kind of a guy, but I can be relied upon.
Sure.
He's got that strong hands too. And so I think there's some similarities there. And I think the landing spot, you kind of hit on this, somebody who somewhere where he can come in and be that wide receiver 3, maybe wide receiver 2, if there's other injuries that happen or somebody catches a cold or whatever, misses a week. And that would be the Kansas City Chiefs, actually. You talk about how their wide receiver room is a little bit of a mess right now. They've got some good pieces. They all kind of need to be a little bit more dependable. And so I think you have somebody like Antonio Williams that can come in and be that solid, hey, I'm the wide receiver 3 here. No matter what, you can rely on me to be in here week in and week out. And I can find those soft spots for Patrick Mahomes to just sit down in and catch the ball like Travis Kelce does. I think that would be a dynamic piece for both Patrick Mahomes in that offense, but also for Antonio Williams to hit the ground running this year. And so I think there's a lot of potential if he goes to a spot like that in the later mid rounds, but I think he would be really, really cool to see.
Yeah, I think that's a good one, especially with the uncertainty of Rashee Rice and his situation. And then Xavier Worthy's just a one-trick pony kind of receiver.
Yeah.
Really good at that one trick, but, they need some more dynamic versatility in the trenches and not in the trenches. You know what I mean? Just in the middle of the field, so.
Yep. And I mean, you got Travis Kelce, who's getting a little bit older too. This might be his last run. And so we got to start thinking a little bit about him afterwards. And so I think somebody like Antonio Williams can still continue to develop, but be really
I think
good
they did re-sign Tyquan Thornton recently too.
I think they did too. Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, shall we get into number 4?
Let's do it.
Number 4.
That would be Deion Burks, the wide receiver. I believe he's out of Oklahoma. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So here's another one where, actually, first, before we jump into that, what is he ranked for you?
My wide receiver 17.
17. Okay, I have him at 15. All right. Look at us. We're kind of simpatico tonight, minus Jeremy Bernard. So.
Yeah. Deion Burks, he's a 5'9" and 3/4 receiver, 180 pounds. He ran a 4.3 40, speedy guy. Had a 42.5-inch vert as well, which is crazy for his size, and 26 bench press reps, which is awesome. So pretty cool.
Yeah, so we talked about how he's from Oklahoma, but give me a little bit of his backstory in college. I know he didn't start at Oklahoma, but I don't know the full story of it all. How did he grow and become a really, I think he's pretty popular because Oklahoma just has a big following for college football.
Sure.
But how did he become so, I guess, popular in college football?
I mean, I think he's one of the most fascinated. He had one of the most fascinating journeys in this class, rather. I mean, he started at Purdue, flashed immediately as a big play threat, and then transferred to Oklahoma. And the moment he stepped on the field in Norman, you could feel the offense shift. His speed changed the spacing, his urgency changed the tempo, and his presence changed how defenses aligned against their offense. His production tells you the story of a guy who consistently created explosive plays. 2021, he only had a catch for 26 yards. 2022, 15 catches, 149 yards. 2023, 47 catches, 629 yards and 7 touchdowns. 24, 31 catches, 245 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then last year, 57 catches, 620 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also, he ran moderately over 50 rushing yards. Just different ways they tried to design schemes to get him the ball. I think what stands out is how he grew. I think early on he was truly just a raw speed player. By the time he left Oklahoma, he's been he's polished now. He's a space creator. He understands timing, leverage, how to weaponize his burst. His track background shows up immediately in every single movement that he makes. But I think his football IQ is what allowed him to take the next step. Truly, so.
Okay, so when you say football IQ, explain that to me.
He's just a smart player, man. He's got great route running and separation traits. His ball skill techniques are great. I think he plays with a level of urgency that jumps off the screen. Every rep is intentional. Every move is intentional. He starts with a jolt. I think he's out of his stance, and into a defender's cushion before they can settle. And I think his routes are built on sharp pacing, sudden angle changes, and the ability to threaten leverage immediately. So just he's very intentional with how he just moves on the field, I would say.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. All right. So when you talk about like fitting into a mold, how would you describe it? Because I feel like he doesn't really fit into any of the like main molds, but is still like a very productive, useful piece that you can have in an offense.
Yeah, I just think he's a pure accelerator, man. He's the guy who forces defensive coordinators to widen their spacing rules. The moment he steps on the field, he doesn't have the size, obviously. He doesn't have the physicality. He's built on instant movements. So I think he fits the modern slot Z weapon archetype. Motion, crossers, quick hitters, vertical shots, misdirection concepts. He's the receiver who's going to make defenders panic, because they know if they take one false step, he's already gone. So,
yeah, no, I think that's a good move. He is fast. Not the fastest one out of this group, but
no, crazy. Yeah.
All right. So talking about his transition to the NFL, you talked about his college career and how it was a journey for him and how he continued to grow and kind of fight for his opportunity. When he transitions to the NFL, what is that going to look like for him? How is he going to become fantasy relevant in year one?
I mean, his bursts are elite. Like I said, his first 3 steps are ridiculous, David. Defenders lose leverage instantly. His sudden route spacing, he can change tempo mid-route without losing balance, which is important. He's an open field danger to defenders. He's one of the best, run after catch threats in this class. He's got great leverage manipulation. He knows how to force defenders into bad angles. Clearly, his explosive testing, the 4.3 40, 1.49 split, his vert is insane. All of those are rare, but also the limitations are real. He's under 5'10". He's not winning many physical battles at all in the NFL. His catch point profile is not built on, built for contested situations. His route tree is still developing, especially in the intermediate detail work, which a lot of quarterbacks like to be in that route. They love those routes. Pass coverage, I think like bigger corners can disrupt him clearly, especially if they get their hands on him early just because of his size. I think his biggest challenge in the NFL is going to be handling the physicality at the line. We talked about, our last receiver the same way. He's going to win with speed and angles in the NFL. He's got to find ways to get away from the bigger, stronger corner, especially in the NFL where they are actually bigger. They're smarter, they're more disciplined. He'll need to expand his release package to avoid getting stalled at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. I like the word that you use, like still developing. Like you saw a lot of that development in college, and I think that there's still going to be a little bit of development that needs to happen in the NFL for him to really hit his peak. I don't think we've seen the best of Deion Burks yet. In all honesty,
No.
he's still a little bit raw.
Get him in a system, get him in a program, a
Mhm.
receiver room, and let him just work for a while.
Yeah. So give me your last summary on Deion Burks before I go into the player comps that I got for him.
Yeah, I mean, he just projects as an explosive, high usage, Z slot weapon who can immediately elevate an NFL offense with his acceleration, his separation skills, and an open field creativity. I think his ability to uncover quickly makes him a natural fit for rhythm-based passing games, while his burst adds vertical and horizontal stress elements that defense must account for on every snap. But he's got to be in the right system, and he's got to put on some weight or something, man. I'm just nervous about him at the line of scrimmage. So
yeah, no, I agree. That 5'9" frame is going to be something that might be a little bit of a hindrance for him at the next level. So speaking of small frames, though, the player comp that I have for him also has a small frame, but has been utilized in a way that I think has been productive at some points for him in his NFL career, and at other times has kind of not been. But that would be Trey Tucker, somebody who also is a big speed guy, a little bit twitchy, good to separate, can stretch the field vertically, but can also find open space on those motion routes, getting out in the flat real quickly and making a guy miss to get some extra yards. And so I think there's a little bit of comparison there. I think the landing spot that I have for Deion Burks would be a lot better for him than it was for Trey Tucker, because now I feel like his career is kind of like up in the air. Like, what is it going to be like in Vegas? Who knows? And so the ideal landing spot that I have for Deion Burks is the Tennessee Titans. You talk about a wide receiver room that's kind of filled out. You've got Calvin Ridley, Alec Manor, who did a really good job last year. Cameron Dyke, is that how you pronounce his last name? The other wide receiver that was a rookie last year and did pretty well, but was a really good returner for them.
Yeah, one of the best.
And then they also signed Wan'Dale Robinson to be kind of that slot piece for them. Yeah. The one thing that they're kind of missing is that speed burner person that can be good in the motion game, but also be a good vertical threat for them. And I think that Deion Burks can be a good piece for them. You talk about Cam Ward going into year 2 as a quarterback. Think about his last year in college. Who was his favorite piece wide receiver that he had in that Miami offense? Xavier Restrepo, somebody who can kind of fit into that type of a mold for him in an offense would be a Deion Burks. Get him into the open flats real quickly and get him some quick short yardage plays. Get him on a double move and let him make a guy miss and just blow past him. He can be a really good vertical stretcher for that team. And so might be like a receiver 4 or 5 on the team, but used in the right way at the right moments could be really, really dynamic for that offense and for Cam Ward. And so I think there's a good landing spot there.
It's funny you mentioned Xavier Restrepo because he literally was an undrafted free agent, went to Tennessee and didn't pan out. So
that's true. That is true. He was kind of like the main piece, though, I feel like, for Cam Ward his last year.
Yeah, in the slot for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We have another ad here.
We do have another ad.
We are blessed with more sponsors, guys. Bear with us. This is a blessing.
We'll get through these real quick. So before we do that, I do have to change the QR code. So last reminder, if you do want to scan anything from Fanatics, pause the video because this is where you'll get it in this QR code. But we're going to change it now to our next ad. So this is sportsmemorabilia.com. Whether you're searching for a baseball autographed by your favorite World Series slugger, a signed football by an iconic Hall of Famer, or the jersey of a world-famous soccer star, you've come to the right place. Here at sportsmemorabilia.com, the web's leading source of authentic sports memorabilia, you'll find more than 500,000 authentic products from nearly every professional sports league, team, and players. Not only will you find the next prized sports possession you really want, thanks to superb customer service and tremendous site experience, you'll have the satisfaction and peace of mind that every product listed comes with a certificate of authenticity and is fully backed by sportsmemorabilia.com and their lifetime authenticity guarantee. So go ahead and head to sportsmemorabilia.com to get your collection started today. And again, that is going to be right above me in that QR code, sportsmemorabilia.com.
Yep. Appreciate them as a sponsor.
All right, number 5.
Number 5, bro. Rolling through.
A number 5.
It gets me every time. I love it.
SpongeBob.
A number 5. It sounds like a SpongeBob narrator. I don't know why. All right, number 5. Brennan Thompson. So he's my wide receiver number 14. Where is he at on your board?
My 18.
18. Okay, still pretty close. I like it. All right. So I actually forget. I want to say he's at
Mississippi State, brother.
Mississippi State. That's right. That's the school he was at. So what was his college journey like? Was he there the whole time? Was he not? Did he run track there as well? Like, what did it look like?
He was. So first off, he's 5'9" and 3/8, 164. Small guy. Did run a 4.26 40, fastest combine 40 for receivers in a 1.54 split. Which is crazy. I think that showcased, the instant burst that makes him such a dangerous space player, which I think is amazing. But yeah, I think, Brennan Thompson is one of the most, he's had a great, unique journey as well in this entire class. He came into college football with legitimate track star credentials, one of the fastest recruits in the country, and that speed followed him, everywhere he went. He started at Texas, transferred to Oklahoma, and then eventually landed at Mississippi State. So he's been all over the country, man.
Okay.
And every stop he's had, the same theme. He's stepped on the field, and defenses had to worry about this dude immediately. 2022, his production, 1 catch, 32 yards. 2023 had 7 catches for 240 yards and 2 touchdowns, which was 34.4 yards per catch.
Wow.
Insane. Yeah. 2024, 19 catches, 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then last year at Mississippi State, 57 catches, 1,054 yards and 6 touchdowns.
That's impressive.
So a huge jump. Yeah. The final season, over 1,000 yards at nearly 19 yards per catch is, where everything clicked, I think. I think he became a legitimate vertical weapon, not just a gadget player last year. And the thing that stands out is, how he grew. Early on, he was pure speed, but by the time he left Mississippi State, he can create space. He now understands pacing. He's great with angles, and he knows how to use his burst without many wasted steps, I would say. So,
okay. Yeah, no, I like that a lot. And I love the way that you'd describe his college career, because what I see from that is somebody who's not giving up, somebody who's going to keep fighting for his opportunity. Somebody's going to keep fighting for his chance. And I think that showed up this year, specifically at Mississippi State, with all those yards that he got. So when you talk about an archetype or a mold, obviously the speed has to play a factor into his. But outside of that, what does his mold really look like? If there is one.
Nothing. I don't know, man. He's a true velocity weapon. He doesn't have the size. He's small. He's not physical because he's small. He's built on instant acceleration and just game-changing speed. He is a slot Z archetype, someone who's motion driven. He's going to be used to stretch the field horizontally, stress safeties vertically, create spacing for everyone else, force defenses into lighter boxes, and punish, any hesitation or misstep. Like I said, it's punishing speed, track star speed. He's the guy that, defensive coordinators are going to lose sleep the night before because, oh man, obviously he's got to translate to the NFL, but man, that speed is game changing. So
yeah, it's dangerous for sure. All right. So what kind of areas can he improve on as he transitions into the NFL? I feel like there's some, I'm not going to give that away. I'll let you answer first.
Yeah, he's 164 pounds first and foremost.
Correct.
He's not built for physical battles. He don't touch him. Don't touch him. He's not winning many 50-50 balls as well with contested catches. He's got to develop his route tree a little bit more. The same story with a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys who are in this tier of is it 13 to 18, 12 to 8, whatever we're at right now. They're not the biggest receivers, but these guys are burners. These guys are small, but they have potential. That's so bigger corners again are going to be, harsh on him. Again, the biggest challenge in him is going to be how he handles physicality at the line of scrimmage. And I know I'm not going to go into it, but it's a broken record at this point. But nonetheless, yeah. So
no, I agree, and that's what I was going to say. Is like, how can he put on weight? Was like my big question. Is one he is
without losing or compromising his speed as well, which I think is important.
Yeah,
so.
And that's challenging for sure. All right, so talk about like fantasy football relevancy in year one. What does that look like for him? Do you think, because this is a question that I have, do you think that he could have a role to play in like the return game at all, whether that be kickoff or punt return or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, with that speed, of course. I think that yes, the answer is yes, I do.
I like
obviously, I'm nervous about the weight still, 164, but he's shifty enough, he's fast enough. Hopefully you got decent blockers ahead of you. I don't want to see him get absolutely demolished, immediately. But nonetheless, I mean, that's the NFL. Get used to a big boy. I mean, he's the kind of guy who can give you 70 yards and a touchdown on 2 touchdowns, like truly. But, he's also the guy who I think uses will be, depend heavily on how creative the coaching staff is to get him involved. I think for fantasy, he's a splash play specialist early, boom bust kind of flex player with real upside, real upside.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, I don't know. I mean, I do think he does have wide receiver 2 potential in an offense that leans on motion and spacing, but he's definitely not a safe pick at all. He's the upside swing. But I think if he lands with the coordinator who knows how to weaponize speed, he becomes a weekly problem for defenses. So it's a coin toss, but man, I love his film too. So that weight is a concern though.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially this past year, I feel like he was definitely a deep threat, but he also like learned how to be a little bit more than that too this past year. Yeah. So my comparison that I have for him is also a speed guy. Somebody who I feel like had a good landing spot his first year in the NFL, but maybe didn't get like the right amount of touches or looks right away. But somebody who's still in the league and still like finding his way, I guess, a little bit. And that would be a Tutu Atwell. I talk about just a speed guy who's got a smaller frame, but somebody who's quick, can get open, and has really, I feel like, grown a little bit since he got into the NFL. And a Tutu Atwell at some point learned how to return kicks too, and has been a little bit productive in the return game a little bit too. So I feel like there's a good comparison there. I think the landing spot for Brennan Thompson, though, is going to be really dependent on teams focusing on somebody else besides him. And so he's going to need to go to a team where they have a wide receiver 1 already who's kind of like a dominant person. And so you're nodding your head. So I'm assuming you probably are thinking of a similar team that what I'm thinking. So what are you thinking?
Thinking the Jets.
That's a good one, but no, that was getting him a lot of playing time. I actually picked the Minnesota Vikings. And so you have Justin Jefferson, who's that wide receiver 1, arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL right now. He's going to be a main focal point for that offense. And you talked about how he can literally turn 2 catches into 75 yards and a touchdown. He can do that in an offense like the Minnesota Vikings. You just brought in Kyler Murray, who's not afraid to sling the ball and throw it deep down the field. Somebody like Brennan Thompson could step in to be that wide receiver 3 or 4 who just really thrives in that deep pass play, that play action, throw the ball deep, just chuck it. He's somewhere down there. He'll come down with it. And so I think there could be that potential for him to do that. And then you think long-term wise, if we're talking dynasty leagues or anything like that, Brennan Thompson could step into that wide receiver 2 role eventually. Jordan Addison, his future is a little bit uncertain in Minnesota. So what does that look like? Nobody knows. And so Brennan Thompson could eventually develop and grow and fight and claw his way into that wide receiver 2 role.
Could see it.
Yeah. All right. Well, then let's get to number 6. Our
last receiver in the series. Last one ever for the rookie series.
For this year.
The rookies, yeah. 2020.
Number 6.
Number 6. That would be our guy, Bryce Lance. All right.
Our guy?
He's my lowest rated wide receiver on this list, but let's see where he's at for you.
You go first.
I have him at number 17. So
wow.
still a top 20.
We're close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a wide receiver 46.
There it is. I knew it. I was like, there's no way he's got to be close to me.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's talk about who is he? He's a 6'3" wide receiver. He played at North Dakota State, if I remember correctly, right? What did his college career look like?
6'3", 3/8", 204 pounds, big receiver, and running a 4.34 speed, a 40 at the combine. That's crazy.
That's good speed for that height. Yeah,
crazy. He's one of the more. I keep on saying all these guys are intriguing to me. I don't know. He came from a small school. He's one of the small school prospects in this class. Yeah. Came into North Dakota State as a long, raw athlete with a basketball background, and over time grew into their primary perimeter threat. His development wasn't overnight by any means. It was a steady climb built on refinement, strength work, and learning how to weaponize his length. His production tells a story of someone who's definitely a late riser. 2023, only had one catch for 7 yards. And then 2024, 75 catches, 1,053 yards, and 17 touchdowns. Holy shnikes. And then 2025 last year, 51 catches, 1,079 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, over 20 yards per catch in 2025, and a combined 25 touchdowns in his final 2 years. That's obviously dominance, but it's dominance against FCS corners, let's be real, which is a part of my evaluation for sure. I think what stands out is how he evolved. Early on, he was just a tall athlete. By the end, he was polished, vertical threat who, succeeded. He had great body positioning. His pacing was, starting to get better. And he used his stride to create space. His growth curve is definitely real. But so is the context, of the competition that he faced, I think. So.
Yeah. Did you know that this is a fun fact, that he is the younger brother of Trey Lance?
No way.
Believe it or not, they share the same last name.
Yeah, I knew that.
But no, I agree with you. The dynamic growth, especially at the tail end of his college career, is really, really encouraging to see. It gives me a little bit of hope that he can actually make that jump that his brother really couldn't make to the NFL. So I'm hopeful for it. But when you talk about mold, archetype, what type of a receiver is he? Is he just kind of your do-it-all type of a player, or what is his calling card? Maybe is a good way of putting it too.
I think he's a stride-based boundary receiver more than anything. He's not a jittery mover. He's not a slot technician. He's very long. He's a smooth outside target who wins with length, frame, vertical pacing, body control, catch point strength. I think he fits the Big Z archetype receiver where you're asking him to run verticals, deep outs, comebacks, and isolation routes, but he's built to live outside the numbers, where his size and stride can take over. So,
No, yeah, I agree. So when it comes to his transition to the NFL, we talked about how he was going up against really not great competition. What will that look like in year one for him? How can he prove that he's worthy of being in the league?
I mean, yeah, his strengths are easy to identify on film. His ball skills are great. He attacks the football early and consistently wins above the rim, like I said. He's got great hands and great tracking. He finds the ball late and can adjust without long balance. Good frame, 6'3", almost 6'4". He gives quarterbacks a massive strike zone. And like I said, his stride efficiency. Once he opens up, he covers ground in a hurry. You saw that at the combine. But I think there are still separation concerns. He's definitely not sudden, and he doesn't consistently create early windows. I think that he's vulnerable against press as well. Even though with his size, I noticed that bigger, stronger corners, he did struggle a little bit more with those guys. His route detail is something that I noticed as well. He's still developing in the nuance needed to win against NFL level coverage as well. And then that competition level, FCS corners don't prepare you for NFL athletes. They don't. So the biggest challenge going into the NFL for him, I think, is winning against NFL man coverage without relying solely on his size. He's going to have to, sharpen up his releases, tighten his pacing, and learn how to create, space without needing a runway. So,
No, yeah, I agree. I think it'll be interesting to see how long it takes for him to get transitioned into the NFL, if it happens at all. Because I think there's skill there. You talk about like that basketball background, and I think there's that ability to high point the ball, to catch the ball in contested traffic. There's translatable skills for sure. And I think he's athletic enough to where he can make the jump. It'll be interesting to see when that happens. If it'll take a year or two, or if it will kind of hit the ground running in a couple of weeks in that first season. So when we talk about fantasy football, how does he project as a fantasy relevant player in year one?
I think he's a long-term swing. Like you said, he's not someone you draft expecting immediate production. Regardless of how he, did at the combine, he's someone who you stash because the ceiling is incredibly intriguing. Throw him on your taxi squad, especially in Dynasty. I think he's a developmental wide receiver 5 or 6 early. Definitely landing spot dependent. He's got, how do I say it? Like spike week potential. Like he could pop off once in a while, once he earns a role. But he's a vertical specialist, with touchdown upside. He's not a volume player. He's a role player with potential to grow into something more if the route detail catches up to the athletic profile. So,
yeah, no, I agree. And I like that characterization of like a spike week potential for year one for him, because he'll find some time to play.
Like best ball, last pick in the draft, that could be great. Maybe not this year, but once he establishes a role, he can be that type of guy where it's any given week, all of a sudden has, 4 catches and 120 yards and 2 touchdowns randomly. I don't think it's consistent at all, but we'll see. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. Which brings me to my player comparison that I have for him. Somebody who I feel like was a best ball gem this last year, maybe last 2 years, but somebody who really seems to be valued in the NFL based off of the contract that he just signed. And
Alec Pierce, come on.
Alec Pierce.
I knew you were going to say that.
So similar size, 6'3", big vertical threat person, but also somebody who can catch the ball in contested catches in the red zone, as my dog is peering behind me, peeking and trying to say hi to you. So yeah, I think there's a lot of comparisons, a lot of things I like. He was literally like the best ball gem last year. Somebody who helped win a lot of leagues and did really, really well. But yeah, he's got good, strong hands, good in traffic. That basketball mindset, I think, or mold and style, I think kind of goes to what Alec Pierce does too. And so my ideal landing spot for him is going to be somewhere where he can develop while he plays. And so I think it would be good if there's already a wide receiver 1 in place where he doesn't have to worry about getting their best quarterback, but can find time and rhythm to get used to the NFL corners that aren't going to be their number ones. And so for that, I picked the New York Jets. You talked about it last time for the landing spot. But for this one, I think it would be really, really, really helpful. He can come in and be that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2, maybe. Be a good red zone target for whoever's playing quarterback there. I think it's Geno Smith now, but who knows? Again, yes. And so, yeah, you talk about somebody who's going to need to learn to develop and kind of learn on the fly. I think that would be a great landing spot for him where he can find some opportunities to hit those spike weeks for fantasy football, but won't be necessarily relied upon time and time again in year one to be a consistent receiver.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. All right, we got one last ad to read, and we will wrap it up here. So our last ad, are you looking for an energy drink that does not crash your day? Well, I'm here to talk to you about Dubby Energy Drinks, Mossor. Clean energy, bold flavors, no jitters, no crash, helps you lock in and stay focused. See why people won't shut up about Dubby at dubby.gg. Again, that is dubby.gg.
That is the actual link / website. It's dubby.gg. It is verified, legit, by the way.
I've checked it out myself.
Yes, I have it as well.
There are over 15 flavors to choose from. Be sure to use the promo code InsideEdge10 to save on 10% of your order. Again, that is InsideEdge10 to save 10% today.
Yeah. And again, guys, if you're rocking with the show, please do us a massive favor and hit all of our socials. We're everywhere, as we talked about earlier in the show. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. We are at Commish Couch. And on Facebook, we are under the Commissioner's Couch Podcast. Every one of those pages has our website link pinned. The commishcouch.podbean.com. And that link takes you straight to our hub where you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Listen Notes, Podchaser, Boomplay, and the Podbean app. Literally anywhere that you get your podcast, you will find us. Anywhere, everywhere. Click the platforms that you use, follow the show, subscribe, drop a 5-star rating. Please leave a review, turn on notifications, and set episodes to auto download. Please, again, follow us on all socials at the Commiss Couch, and please show us some love. Even doing a couple of those things really help us out so much more than you know. And if you play fantasy football or you just love the game, you're going to want to stay plugged in. Let me and David be your competitive edge all season long.
Yes, please. We will help you. All right. Well, our last ad read, we are brought to you by Alley Rose Fragrances. They are the official sponsor.
No, it's not that one. Sorry.
Edge.
We already did Alley Rose. Rose.
Right.
Yeah, we're this one. Again, huge thank you to Mossor Moments Photography. Mossor Moments Photography is a husband and wife wedding photography team based in Cleveland, owned and operated by Ryan and Hallie Mossor. I'm Ryan. Hello. For the past 10 years, it's weird saying they've captured more than 100 weddings across Northeast Ohio. I can't talk any water. Always working together as a true two-person team. Their style centers around authentic emotional storytelling, documenting the real moments between two people in love and creating images that feel natural, comfortable, and true to the couple. Rooted in Northern Ohio, but inspired by their travels, Ryan and Hallie bring a warm, personal approach to every wedding day. Their work blends experience, consistency, and a genuine passion for helping couples relive their best day through timeless photography. Learn more at MossorMomentsPhotography.com. That's MOSSOR momentsphotography.com right there on the screen. I was David's photographer. I've done over 100 weddings in Ohio, guys. Go check us out. We're legit.
Yeah, if he can make me look good, he can make you look good.
Your wife makes you look good.
That's true.
All right, guys, that brings week 3 of our wide receiver evaluations to a close. This was a point in the process where the board really starts to stretch out, David, where clean prospects, the developmental swings, the specialists, the pure athletes, all collide in the middle tiers. These 6 guys each brought something different to the table today, and breaking them down forces you to sharpen your eye, tighten your standards, and really separate what looks exciting from what actually translates into the NFL. We had physicality, we had finesse, we had track level, juice, the vertical finishers, we had timing based separators, and raw tools that turn into something real that with the right coaching. I think, David, this is a part of the class where you learn the most about yourself as an evaluator, I think, because nothing is handed to you. You've got to dig, you got to contextualize, you've got to trust the rubric that I at least have trusted the rubric that I built, and that's exactly why this show works. I think every Thursday, obviously this isn't Thursday, this is pre-recorded because last week I was sick. We're not just rattling off names though. We're building a board, we're building a process, and we're building a standard. I keep talking about the standard we're trying to set. And the deeper that we get into this draft cycle, the more that you can feel the standard taking shape. But now, as David mentioned earlier, we are going to pivot. Next week, we step out of the wide receiver room and into one of the most fascinating position groups in this 2026 class, the running backs. So excited. A position that's evolving every year, obviously, where usage matters as much as talent, where role, scheme, and skill set can completely change a player's value. And we're starting with the top 6. I want to say on our boards, but some of the top 6 on our boards, 6 backs who will win in different ways, who can change the complexion of an offense, who are going to spark some real debate on this show, I think, as well, which is going to be fun. The running backs that we're going to start off with next episode tomorrow. This is pre-recorded, but tomorrow live, Thursday, is Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame, Jonah Coleman out of Washington, Nicholas Singleton out of Penn State, Katron Allen out of Penn State, Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame, and Emmett Johnson out of Nebraska. So buckle up, because if the last 3 weeks were about detail, nuance, and projection, next week is about identity, versatility, and impact. Again, as David said, if you missed for some reason any of our previous episodes during this off season, please do yourself a favor and find us wherever you stream your podcasts and check them out. Our first 2 weeks, as David said, is of season 2. We broke down our top 12 quarterbacks. These last 3 episodes, including tonight, we broke down our top 18 receivers. Go check them out and become a fantasy football cheat code in your leagues, please. They're great episodes. A huge thank you to my guy, David Kahoun. Follow him on Twitter at DavidCahoun24. My name is Ryan Mossor. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyCLE. Anything else you want to talk about real quick, David?
No, I'm just excited to dive into these running backs. It's going to be really fun.
Me too. I'm so excited. Guys, we will see you tomorrow, Thursday, live at 7 p.m. as we kick off running backs week 1. Season 2 keeps rolling, and we're just getting warmed up, guys. I'm so excited.
Let's go.
Thank you.